today. My name is Heian Shin. I'm an education advisor at the Center for Sustainable Development of the Climate School at Columbia University. The Earth Institute is a prior naming that we had, so it comes up sometimes. Thank you everyone for joining. So this session is one of 6 sessions in a series that's hosted by the Earth Network and the Center for Sustainable Development of Columbia University's Climate School. We're doing this under the Worldwide Climate and Justice Education Week. And I wanted to share a little bit, very briefly, about the hosting programs because they will give you a sense for what brings us today and why we have this session going on. So the Columbia Climate School's mission is to further knowledge and educate leaders to achieve equitable and just solutions to sustainability challenges. So the work includes research and field work that educates future climate leaders, ranging from graduate degree programs for students, educators, and professionals, to programs that focus on community outreach. So we have student research and field work and learner-centered approaches for various age groups. The aim is to translate academic work into evidence-based analysis and advice to inform decision and policymakers in communities, governments, industries, and nonprofits in the US and globally. So Center for Sustainable Development and Earth Network's work really mirrors this mission of the Climate School. Center for Sustainable Development supports countries and communities to achieve
Did we just lose her or is it just me?
It's not just you. I was thinking it was just me, but I'm glad to know it's not.
groups across
And your voice is cutting for some reason.
60 members across the universities to promote fresh approaches to research, education, and impact. And this particular network who's putting it together, the Climate Education for a Resilient Future. We aim to address the urgent need for climate education and empowerment through education co-development and partnerships. We convene and foster connections and collaborations amongst the existing and ongoing efforts on public and K through 12, non-formal and informal climate education approaches across the university and in the worldwide communities engaged by our researchers and educators. So we'll get to hear some of those programs today, and the panelists here are the key people, academics, practitioners who are really carrying on this work. So I will now hand it over to our panelists who will share first a little bit about themselves and their work. And we are going to start with Radhika. And in the chat, I will put some links to our programs as well. So Radhika, over to you.
Thank you, Hain. So I work at the Center for Sustainable Development with Hain, working on this program called the Eco Ambassadors Program. We've relabeled it as the Eco Ambassador Solutions Lab, which is now in the 5th year. And across the years, I think we've had many students apply for this program, from various different countries. We have a lot of, we work in collaboration with SDGs today at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And it's a program that does a lot on GIS, like really, skills to showcase storytelling from the students. And the topics are very student driven. Can we go over to the next slide? So a part of it is also experiential learning. A part of it is communities, in communities working with various different topics, and people who are lucky, who are close by in New Jersey, New York, they are able to come to our experiential learning program with Professor Joachim Goes and Professor Yan at Lamont. And they're able to do microplastic testing, and other activities. So I think and we've also taken some students over to COP in Dubai and elsewhere to showcase their storytelling. So I just wanted to also highlight a couple of things that we've noticed across the years is that there are hundreds of students apply, but we have to also remember that these are students who have internet connection. These are students who have a computer. So these are already privileged students in a way. If we take examples of students in rural India whose family have one cell phone and they have only that cell phone that the family shares, it's difficult to get across this program to that. So I think we also need to expand our reach in terms of students who are unable to do it because of infrastructural issues, because of other circumstances. Also, these are also self-selected students who want to learn. How about having some students who are on the verge or not getting the information, are relying on Google search? So I think this self-selection of students is also something maybe this group can help us to tackle. Then the few other things is that it is based on people who are able to reach out or able to get this information. And many a times I get messages from Columbia University faculty itself that, oh well, we didn't know about this program. So I think this outreach communications part of all our programs need to be working together somehow to reach the array of programs that we have for grades, different grades, so that at least we are able to give this word out. Another consideration is the language consideration. This program is in English. When we are bringing in people from all over the world, there are people who speak in Bangla and Hindi and in so many different languages. I think, where are we with those languages, and how do we use AI as a part of some sort of a solution for language, I think is something that we need to consider. And finally, all these different challenges, trying to see how we can manage to collaborate better to make sure that the word is spread out, to manage to not only get selective students, but also to have a much wider cast of net, so that we can have so many different students join in. One last bit from my end, and then of course we leaving it up to the discussions towards the end, is the collaborations. I think this program has been successful because we've collaborated with a lot of different partners, and I've realized that the center can have its own reach, but if we are not able to collaborate, then we can still continue having the same reach, and the same students will come back to us, and it will be a good program which will still have hundreds of students. But how do we get in different students, different profiles, having students who are coming from various different places. I remember a student coming from Syria. He would jump from one room to the other wherever he could find internet to access our program while we were showing it. So and also, plus, if we have videos on and if we have something on, that's again becomes a challenge. Maybe something to do with podcasts. I don't know if the climate school has a podcast or something that can also help with the voice, when students can take this on their own, might be a good solution. So thank you. I didn't want to take a lot of time, but I did. Sorry about that.
No, that's great, Radhika. Thank you. Definitely, we'll definitely come back to this during our discussion. I'll hand it over now.
Yeah, so my name is Ben Bostic. I direct the secondary school field research program. It is a field research program that works with, unlike Radhika's program, which is primarily a global thing, we're kind of more local. We are a program that works primarily with students in New York City and the area around our campus here at Lamont. This program is a 6-week program during the summer where we do field research of different sorts. I'm a geochemist, and a professor here in geochemistry. That sort of causes many of those projects to have a chemical bend, but many of them also do not. The goal of that program is really to create people who are going to go on and become scientists. So our program is really basically takes all these students and they work in group projects, again, spanning science, but often in this Piermont Marsh, which you see a picture here of on the left. We get samples, we go into the lab, like the pictures in the middle and on the right, to really study a whole range of things, ranging from how the marsh functions, how it helps modulate climate, or how it impacts water chemistry, carbon storage, all kinds of different things that we happen to do. And those projects sort of take a life of their own over time, because the students, many of whom come back in a year, sort of adapt projects along as they sort of evolve and evolve those projects. That is an example of how self-directed research sort of happens. Many of our students end up being here for many years and really become experts in environmental science in many ways. What I think is unique about this program, again, is that because it's a repeated program, many of the students come back and have a chance to participate multiple times and sort of become mentors as they're growing, and that really helps both in terms of making the program work, but also helping those high school students that are involved in the program feel like they're a part of something and that's growing and that they're going to be a part of for into the future. If you guys want to next slide here. So in terms of things we've learned from operating this program over the last 20 or so years, it's that it's really important to just jump in and get started on research. We don't spend a lot of time once this high school students come thinking about work. We try to get in and get into the marsh right away. Here's the picture on the right is an elevation model of the marsh that we've been collecting with drone imagery, which is one of the things that we've been working on over the last couple of years. As just an example, we try to literally go out there and do things in there as soon as we can. We bring back samples, get experience in the lab, and then we work on teaching and what those things work, what those things mean once there's some contextual spot for that. And that really increases engagement and helps that research be successful. It's also something that allows the students to have a little bit of creativity. It isn't that we try to set up the whole project, although we do think about what we kind of want to do in the beginning with the senior students who are returning, but we want the students to have an opportunity to make many decisions for themselves. For example, if we're interested in carbon and I was to give you this picture of a map, you could go out and decide where you might look for it and get to choose different places that you think are representative. And then think about how you want to do the experiments and things as you become more experienced. Our perspective is that our students come in, many of whom have had, they're just beginning high school in some cases, right? So they're not super experienced in any science, but that everyone has a lot of experiences in different things. And we try to really encourage people to use that creativity in science and use the skills they do have rather than focusing on the skills that they don't, because frankly, we all lack certain skills. I certainly lack some of the skills I wish I had to work in the marsh and do everything. And that's, I guess, a lesson from our program is how can we all work in science and do collaborative research together that's better than anything any of us could do in isolation, including me. So we spend most of our time in that unstructured research where we give students that chance to do stuff and then give them the chance to evaluate it and refine what they want to do, and let them build confidence in their work as they go along. Okay.
Thanks so much, Ben. I love that, like building on what students already have. And so it just like that so much uniqueness can be brought out that way. Thanks, Ben. Margie, to you.
Great, thank you. So I'm Margie Turin. I'm Director of Educational Field Programs at Lamont, and I work out of the Marine Polar Geophysics group, which is why I'm focusing on polar areas. So this is a program that we run over the summer. It's a summer 6-week internship. It's called Polar CAP, or the Polar Climate Ambassadors Program. And our 3 major goals are to inspire, to inform, and then to activate these young individuals. And our thread is really about building literacy. So climate literacy, how are the polar regions connected into our larger climate system? And how can we understand the changes in our system by focusing back in on those polar regions? So they're a part of the instigation, but they're also seeing the large effects. And so we do this by bringing a small cohort of students to Lamont and also to our field station to kind of dig right into the polar science, which is normally something they're not that familiar with. And then we have them develop resources for us. And that's a really key piece of it. It's not just about putting information in, it's about them co-developing what it is they want to learn and then developing some resources where they then can share this with the larger community. So lessons learned, the interns really want to jump right into talking to the public. So we try very hard to get them activated, get them excited first, and give them enough information where they can do that and feel comfortable that they can answer the questions. As always, you don't just talk to the public. They have a lot of questions. They want to ask a lot more of you. And so having just that amount of information they need to be able to go out and work with the public is critically important. They really want a lot of freedom in what they develop. And I think that, we've seen that that's a really empowering piece to them. So just giving them enough background and suggesting some ideas and then letting them work in groups together works really well. They really consider what they create the highlights, and are very excited about being able to share it. And we are too. We think it's the highlight as well. And the other thing, or one other thing, there's a lot that I could say, but one other thing that we've learned through this is that they are really interested in the people that live in the Arctic, and they really want to better understand the impacts and also make sure they have a voice. And I think that that's something that's really remarkable about the experience, is that it really helps highlight for them that these people are beyond stakeholders. They're living it, they're experiencing it, and we really want to put them in the conversation as a lead player in the conversation. Kind of takeaways or best practices. Again, much as Ben said, they really like to work in small groups. They do a lot of discussion. I think discussion is a really critical piece of them developing a solid understanding, as well as them feeling comfortable being a communicator about the material. If they can't talk about it comfortably with each other, they're not going to be able to do a good job or feel confident explaining it to somebody that's completely unfamiliar. So that opportunity for conversation is great. And then they still want to be connected after 6 weeks, which is exactly our goal. So finding ways to stay connected to them, which hasn't been hard. They reach out, and that's really a neat opportunity, is really important. I did want to mention just two other really quick things. One is that, when you do these things in person, they have a really strong impact. And I think that that's a really important concept, but it also does limit significantly who you're able to work with, because you can't bring in, a large multitude of students to be able to do this. So it does mean our cohort is small. And so thinking about how to leverage that and use it in both an in-person and an online way is really important. And then to just quickly kind of reiterate what Radhika said, we do get an uneven response pool. So we get students that we work really hard to pull in who are very unexperienced and really will value this and really benefit from it. And then we get some very high achieving students who are really in it already. And so trying to figure out how to bring those groups together and really make a meaningful cohort is always a bit of a trick. And I'll pass it off to the next presenter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marissa Nunziato. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Lamont. And I'm going to talk about our Next Gen program, which is a 6-week high school internship that we run every summer. We've been running this program for about 5 years now. And it's based out of our Hudson River Field Station, which is at the end of Piermont Pier, right next to that marsh that Ben was mentioning earlier. So it's a really great program in getting students immersed in a local environment to learn about it. So the goal of the program is for these about dozen high school students to come to our field station and get involved in some of the different projects and research that we're doing at our field station. So they get into the water, they look at the biology that's in the area, they sample for microplastics, they'll test for water quality, looking at potential indicators that the water is unsafe to interact with at certain times. They'll look at the chemistry of the water. They'll help monitor different eastern oyster cages to help repopulate the Hudson. So we really get them involved in a bunch of different projects. And the goal is really for them to learn about the Hudson through hands-on field exploration. So they're learning as they're participating in these projects. And we really want them to be able to communicate with their community. So we have them host other groups to the field station for field trips, to teach them about the Hudson. We have them participate in our weekly outreach events called Science Saturdays that we host on the pier as well. So we want them to learn about the Hudson, but we also want them to be able to share about the Hudson as well. So it's a little bit of learning from each other, working together, building those really important foundational skills. If you're interested in going to a science field, how to collect data, how to communicate the science that you're doing. Science is great, but if you can't talk about the importance of what you're looking at, it doesn't necessarily have as big of an impact as you would like to. So this program's really great. It's very hands-on. Our high school students are actually mentored by undergraduate students as well. So we have sort of a structure of near-peer mentoring. And we've seen some of our previous high school students in the program come back for second years to participate again, and then end up being an undergrad mentor as well. So we see that a lot of students continue on throughout our program. Some lesson learned, this will probably be fairly similar to what some other people have already mentioned, but again, working in small groups. Students love to work in small groups. They don't always want, their supervisor or someone else to be involved in their sampling. They like to work together independently. And I found that really making sure that students are working in different groups frequently of different complements of students really helps to increase collaboration and cohesion of the cohort. So you don't tend to get those small little cliques that, if anyone works with high schoolers, you might be familiar with, tends to happen. So it really increases collaboration. We really like to support individual students' interests. So some students come in and they're really interested in biology, or they're really interested in the chemistry, or they're really interested in microplastics. So offering them other resources or telling them about other opportunities that beyond they can participate in to really foster that interest that they might have. One of the things with doing field work is some students might be a little hesitant when doing some sampling. So really paying attention to the interns in your cohort, making sure that you're supporting some students that might be a little hesitant to participate in some sampling. Sometimes touching a fish is really scary for students. And we work with our students. By the end of the summer, they're all like in it to win it. They're in the net. They're picking up crabs and fish. So we really help our interns overcome some hesitations or fears. And similar key best practices are, continue to engage your students beyond. We engage our interns by reserving spots for returners so they can do a second year. We involve them in our different community science programs so they can continue participating in that research. We also have them get involved in our different outreach events that we host, and we write them letters of recommendation for college, for other internships, and we provide an opportunity to really mentor them through the college application process, giving them feedback and advice, connecting them with people within their job field that they're interested in going into. So really making sure that you're engaging with them and continuing to support them beyond. And also making sure that you use past participants of your program to continue to promote it. People who have been part of the program are the best people to speak on it, speak on the value of the program. So we really try to leverage our past participants to help promote the program. Some brief challenges that have sort of already been mentioned. This program primarily supports students in Rockland County, North Jersey, Westchester area. We're unable to provide transportation for our students. And so that sometimes is a barrier for a lot of our students who apply because our field station is not really accessible through public transportation, or it's very hard to use public transportation to get there. So that's definitely a barrier for some students participating. We're able to work with one local school to provide, buses for their specific students. But that's definitely a barrier and a challenge that we're really trying to work on and work through so that we can support more students who might just not be able to get to the program as easily as others. Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge. And I'll hand it off to our next speaker.
Great. So I'll pop back in and just talk a little bit about this Rockland Planning Land Use with Students. So this is focused on sustainable planning, and the difference between this particular program and the ones we've heard about before are is that this is one that we run through the schools. So we run this with high schools and high school classrooms, and we've been running this program for about 20 years. It's a really important program in our eyes in terms of showing students that they have a voice in their community and helping them to think about ways and pathways that they can be involved in their community, even at their young age. So the idea of this is that we work in the schools 3 different times. We have a series of like developing lessons. That first one focuses on what would be a really important sustainable features. What are the things that would be critical for you to bring into a community plan? Then we ask them to turn an eye on their own community and think about what's the strength or the weakness in their community. And this is always the liveliest discussion that we have. They're always very opinionated. So that brings to light a lot of things that they can either leverage in their plan or that they perhaps can address in their plan if there's a vacancy. And then finally, we introduce them to a local project. Sometimes they'll come to us with a local project. Sometimes we'll provide one to them, and they start doing their own plan for that project. And then for about so first of all, I should say there are about 300 students that participate in this part of the process. And then about 1/3 of those go on to a symposium. And that symposium is hosted at a large venue where we bring about 40 different mentors from the community. So these are planners, these are community leaders, they're business owners, they're a whole range of different professionals who are there to hear the students' plans, provide some feedback for them, and then also to work with them on how to refine a new plan that's introduced to them that day. So they share what they've done, and then they work together on a new plan, which is always a lot of fun. Starts out a little bit exciting because we integrate them across schools, and that's always, starts out very quiet. Pretty soon, they're all in it again and just having a great time. So lessons that we've learned from this experience are the students really need something tangible. We used to start with a larger case study that wasn't that familiar to them, i.e. it might be in a place in the county where they just weren't familiar. We really have identified that we need to have a very specific project that they can visually see so that they can think it through. And so that's really made a big difference in terms of their commitment and interest in the project. They also need to be encouraged to think a little bit more broadly than just youth. So we always start by saying, think across ages and stages of life. So if you're planning, if you're introducing something into your plan, think about how different ages and stages would use it. That helps them move beyond thinking about a gym or a rec center, which was, has always been kind of something that comes right out. A third thing that we find is extremely important is helping them think of stakeholders. Nobody accomplishes anything on their own. And I think a lot of times young people don't recognize that there are ways that they can reach into the existing groups that are in the community, and those stakeholders can help really elevate their ideas and their voices. So learning how to work with others to help make these things happen is really important. And then finally, we put together a set of kind of different planning concepts that we call our planning cards. They range from energy concepts to environmental concepts to green infrastructure, a whole range of different things. And we want them to have an idea of what they would like to accomplish first, and then we'll share those planning concept cards to help them kind of put together a little bit more of a cohesive plan. And those have been really successful in terms of helping them identify things that are possible in their location. In terms of best practices, I think one thing that we've learned again and again is how important it is to prepare the mentors before they're working with these young people. They often come in with so much realism that they can overwhelm the ideas that the young people bring to the table. So making sure they understand that they want to identify positives and then absolutely bring their suggestions in, because the kids want those suggestions. They've worked hard on a project and they do want feedback, but making sure that they don't get shut down by some of these stronger, more knowledgeable individuals. And that's been a really important piece for us. And then finally, we try and encourage our mentors not to get too hung up in financial discussions. You know, they want to go to taxes and rateables and a lot of even zoning, which can become very structured and a little bit hard for the students who really need a whole class on that to start with. So we try and get them to kind of think a little bit more broadly. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the next speaker.
Thank you, Margie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laurel Zaimashihi. I am the Assistant Director of K-12 and Continuing Education at the Columbia Climate School. Hey, and I'm sorry, I have a lot of animation in here, so I'll just give you cues on when to go.
Oh, it's Laura. Thank you. It's actually Laura who's sharing. Thanks, Laura.
Okay, Laura. You can go ahead and click. So there are two programs I wanted to share with you all today at the Columbia Climate School for high school students. The first one is the Columbia Climate School in the Green Mountains. This is a 2-week campus-based pre-college program that runs throughout the summer. It's focused on engaging students in climate information and driving them to create their own climate action in their communities. And this program is actually based in Vermont. So our goal is to educate students from across the world on climate through an interdisciplinary lens. So one of the beautiful things about this program is that there are students coming from all over the US, all over the world. So there's just a really great opportunity for them to exchange ideas and perspectives and share about the climate impacts that they're experiencing, because it is so different depending on where you live. And then we dive into this interdisciplinary educational approach to teaching climate. So they're going to start by learning about the science of climate change, some modeling, but then we're going to dive into how does that impact societies, about disaster risk and resilience. How do we communicate about climate change? We talk about policies, international and federal. We talk about the economics, food system, circularity. So we're really trying to show students that no matter what they're interested in, climate really can be a part of their careers, no matter what pathway they take. We work with a network of practitioners, both in the private and public sector, in addition to the Columbia experts that join the program. So this really helps students to understand the different sectors and the intersections there, as well as learning about climate solutions in action. Students engage in hands-on fieldwork, debate, discussions, and community-focused projects. So similar approach to some of the other programs that we heard about already. And then they're building a network of like-minded students to share about their own passions and to think about environmental leadership as a young person now and long into the future. So that is our in-person pre-college program. The next program we have is a pre-college academic year virtual workshop. So recognizing that coming to a 2-week program in Vermont can be difficult for many people across the world, we wanted to give an opportunity for people to tune in virtually for that engagement. And we also, in this opportunity, have a lot of different students from all over the world that join us, which is great. So these are interactive, online, 15-hour workshops, also designed for high school students that are interested in climate and sustainability. These are led by Columbia experts at the climate school. So sometimes we have guest speakers that are practitioners in different spaces, but all of these are really led by climate school instructors. And this allows students to really gain insights on some of the cutting edge information and climate and sustainability research that's happening at the school, as well as start to network and build connections with different Columbia experts. In the case they're interested in joining Columbia College for their undergraduate degree. Our topics change each semester based on some of the feedback we get from students. So this creates a really nice dynamic rotation of topics. Right now we have a workshop. It's actually led by Margie and Marissa, and it's on climate conversations. But we've also done topics on sustainable planning and design, the polar regions and how it impacts all of us, climate justice or injustice, disaster preparedness and recovery, and more. So the topics really do, as you can see, vary. Students engage in discussions, case studies, and project-based learning to really promote critical thinking. And then we empower students to take that knowledge and apply it into a project at the end of the program. Okay, so that's a little snapshot of these two opportunities. And there have been some lessons learned and best practices that I have found from both of these experiences. Laura, you can go to the next slide. And what I found is that some of the lessons learned have then guided best practices going forward. So we're always pivoting and growing and changing, as many of us do as educators. So the first lesson learned is that we need everyone to take action in climate. It needs to be incorporated in everyone's careers. So that also means that as educators, we need to tell students that no matter what you're interested in, you should be learning about climate, and you need to be prepared with that climate foundation. That's really critical. It's not just, a science-focused field. Everyone is an expert and everyone is a beginner. So what that is basically saying that it's as important to listen to each other as it is to share your own perspectives. We're all learning in this space. We all have something to share. And there is no climate hero or no silver bullet solution. So we can't just put all of the responsibility on certain actors. We all have a role to play. And that actually is very powerful when you think about collective action and the power that individuals play when you work together. So from these lessons learned, the best practice that I've really pulled from this is, you can go ahead and click again, perfect, is this multi-directional teaching approach, which is also something you can see threaded throughout many of these programs. We're all learning from each other. Students are learning from teachers, teachers are learning from students, and students are learning from each other. So as educators, it's really important to create a culture and an environment in the classroom that allows for these type of interactions. The next types of lessons learned, I have found that field-based and place-based teaching really connects students to the subject matter, and it creates really memorable experiences for them. Also, project-based learning and debates help students to apply their knowledge that they've learned in the classroom into a real-world scenario. So this enhances their understanding because in order to argue a point of view, you really do have to know it. And students love it. I found that these are some of the activities they love most. So in terms of best practices, leverage various modes of learning, modalities of learning for students. I think that enhances their critical thinking skills as well as some of the tangible skills that they'll take into, their academic and professional careers. And it kind of keeps it fun and fresh for them in the classroom. I also found that engaging with a diverse group of students, in our case, we've had an incredible opportunity to work with an international cohort. This really creates rich discussions with a lot of unique perspectives. Hearing about different lived experiences and beliefs from students has been really powerful for the classroom, but also empowering for the student to be able to share confidently in what they have experienced and learned. So I know that that is not always an opportunity in your programs or in your classrooms, given if it's a, in-person local program versus a international program. But one of the key practices that could be, I think, used in any program is just to provide the space for students to digest the information that you're giving them and then be able to reflect on that content in a classroom. Because when they're able to share their own experiences and perspectives on something, I think it also can really humanize the data that you might be sharing in graphs or data visualizations. So giving them that opportunity is important. Students also are feeling a really immense amount of pressure and climate anxiety and anger for what they're experiencing now and what is forecasted for the future. We are all experiencing climate, but given that they are a younger generation, they're going to continue to experience some of the worst impacts if no action is taken. So recognizing those feelings is really important. And so some of the best practices is when you're teaching to really have a focus on solutions. I think it's important to understand the challenges to then pivot towards solutions, but it has to be solution oriented. You can't end with this message of doom and gloom. We hear it enough in the media. So how can we support them in understanding that the different actions that they can take, and how can we support them as educators in taking those pathways as well? We also should not be telling students that they're the generation to save us. It's all on you. Go save the world, because that puts even more pressure on them. And I think the intention is positive, but the reaction that we've been seeing from students is just feeling even more anxiety. And so that was something that I learned during Climate Week from a student panel. So they want to be empowered and they do want to make a difference, but they don't want all the burden on them. So instead, I think what that could look like is a coordinated effort of multi-generations, adults, near peers, young people, all working together. And we all have a role to play, right? So maybe that means for adults that have a seat at the table to make space for the young people to have a voice and to kind of create those pathways for them to create change. So I think supporting them when needed, providing guidance when asked is really important way to empower students as well. And then finally, inspiring students to take that coordinated and collective action is more important than having them take individual action. I think there's been a really heavy focus on our carbon footprint, but in actuality, that's very individually focused. It's a little, honestly, it can be isolating if you're blaming people for not taking more personal action. And what we really should be focusing on is inviting people in and taking more collective action. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Laurel. The part you mentioned about really focusing on the solution really resonates with some of the youth that we have come across to in the Eco Ambassador program. And I think sometimes the mistake that I have made is that when we talk about solution is that it's also in talking about solution, putting somehow the burden on the youth again too, but really realizing that there are so many different ways that action can be taken. And within this huge challenge that we have that is collective and shared, what are some pieces of it that can be tackled and really breaking down also. So thanks for sharing that, and about also humanizing the data and debating. We do a lot of discussions, but I think debating critical in this current environment of the world is also a respectful debate is so crucial as well. I've been trying to keep my comments in between the presentation to a minimum because we're so pressed for time. But one thing that I did want to kind of go back and mention, Margie, what you shared about your programs, and also Marissa, like one thing that really struck for me, and I think what makes it so powerful also, is that it sounded like the students aren't not just attaining information and skills, but it's like flowing through them. So they're taking it in and then they're passing it on, and then like more groups of people are also getting involved in that process. And I thought that was so powerful. And beyond the science skills, like the life skills that they're getting, which kind of it just happens almost organically, but it's as powerful as the science knowledge that they're getting. So that really struck. Did I miss a presentation? Because we didn't have it in the deck, but Magdalene, are you sharing as well? Did I? But that's it, right? Or that's
I work with Ben Bostic, so I'm happy to answer any questions if they come
oh
up.
great.
But he
Perfect,
presented
perfect.
already.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So now we have a few minutes left for discussion and questions. Radhika, I saw your hand was raised, so please go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge that one of our eco ambassadors surprisingly joined this call, Bernice Deng. Since she's here, I wanted to just give the floor to her to see what do you want to learn, Bernice, and what are the things that you are aspiring for, just to see, your reflections. And just to give one background on Bernice is that she's been an eco ambassador for the past 2 years. I can try to look for her story map. I'll share here. But she's also one of the people who doesn't live in the neighborhood and joins from afar. So it's really nice to see that she is still here and trying to learn whatever she can online. And I think it's wonderful that maybe she can share a few words, if possible, if you have the time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. So I can actually share my story map from last year. It's about tiny nodos. So these are nodos found in the ocean. And what I really like about the Eco Ambassador programs over the 2 years I've been there is the amount of resources, advice, and just the amount of speakers and education that we learn from the program. Even though it's online, I just learned so much. It's one of the best programs that I really look forward to. And it's something that I'm able to learn so much from because it allows me to delve into topics that I've never heard of. For example, nodos is a topic that I didn't even learn about until I was researching and when I was learning more about the various microplastics in the Eco Ambassador program. And now I'm like doing research with this too. So it just shows how much the topics introduced in the Eco Ambassador program, the interactivity of creating story maps can really shape one's learning and a student's passion. So as you can scroll down, there's like various pathways or various like parts that I look through. There's nodos, nodo spills, pathway of nodos, nodos and wildlife. I provide the story map, which I'm very grateful to learn about how to use and visualize maps in ArcGIS and using and utilizing these various tools that can help cultivate an interactive map. So this is Pathways of Nodos, and I also talk about nodos of wildlife, local impacts, and solutions. And something I really like doing is that really being able to brainstorm some solutions that we can look into as well. And this Eco Ambassadors program is something that I'm truly grateful for. I learned so much, and being able to brainstorm, go in breakout rooms and discussion is something I'm very excited about for this year's Eco Ambassadors program, and also when I'm reflecting and looking back into resources.
Thanks so much, Bernice. Thanks, and thank you for joining and sharing your work. I hope you'll continue it. So now we'll open it up to any other questions that you have for each other, for others who joined, the participants who joined, any questions you have about our programs. So I'll open up the floor now. You can unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat box. Jeanette, please go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. We are working with kids in Mexico in a rural part in Oaxaca, and I don't know if we can make these students who are in elementary school, and we are having more schools that they want to join to participate in the environmental research that we're doing there. It is possible to do something in a collaboration with any of you?
Jeanette, what kind of research are you doing with the students? That would be probably a first question. It sounds as if you already have some work underway.
Yes, yes. You know, we started working with the handcrafters that use some particular kind of wood that it's a bursera, and they have been using this tree for like 60 years already. This is a kind of new handcraft in Oaxaca, Mexico. Maybe you have been hearing of that. The name is alebrijes. And the thing is like now the communities they don't have enough of this wood, and we started with working with the handcrafters, and at some point we were like maybe we go and start working with the kids, because at some point some of these kids are going to become the new artisans. And we went there, and the school was very open, and it has been a great, an incredible success there. And now we are moving forward, and the school is asking for more and more work. To be honest with you, we were not expecting such a positive reaction from the school community. The parents start to get involved. Now we have an open classroom for teaching all this outdoor learning experience. They start having a very, very rustic greenhouse. You know, the need of resource is very high, but we want to make this a little bit more structured, and we are not really ready to do that thing. Okay, we need more people that really is ready to help us a little bit more over there. No, and the government changed 2 years ago the way of the programs. Now the teachers are being pushed to do all these projects. They are not ready to create projects. They don't know how to do it, and they keep asking us to train the teachers. And of course, we are not ready to do that too. No, and we are trying to build as fast as possible. But we know that here we have a lot of resource, and if it's possible to partner with any of the institutions or NGOs or people that is involved in education and can have resource to help over there, we will happy to connect.
Thank you for sharing that and for explaining more about that. I think for us, we have your contact because you would have registered for the workshop. And I think that we'll probably want to follow up independently with you on that and see what possibilities might exist. It doesn't it's something that probably takes a little bit more nuance, if you will. It's just not exactly a direct path from any of us that I'm aware of, but there might be some possibilities. So let us circle back if that's okay.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Margie, for the response. Yeah, I think that's great. And Janet, I was thinking, as Margie was saying, it may need kind of a different way of approaching it because the way our programs are run itself right now, it doesn't look like there's a direct. But even hopefully from the presentations and what was shared from the programs, especially if it's in the beginning phase of designing these programs and training the teachers, I think there are definitely some, the best practices that you saw. We intentionally kind of crafted our presentation so that regardless of the setting, there are some just key tips that can be adopted into even program design and planning. So hopefully that's also helpful, but let's definitely be in touch. So I'll make sure we have your contact information, your email. So we'll be in touch with you. But I think maybe the first step is maybe revisiting some of the points that were shared in the presentation today.
Thank you. Thank you. And we are open to share with you the information that we have and drive with you about what is this community and also to put you in during the contact with the school principal and the teachers.
That's great. Oh, and out of curiosity, you mentioned that the research was the trip was done with elementary school students. Are there slightly older students in the school as well?
Yes, it's another school that it's a high school
Okay.
that they also want us to start a program related to the environment with them. But the thing is, like, we don't have the capacity to do that, no. And with them, we were just doing a very basic stop, literally, just to look at what the students really want to learn. We did like a very basic question: what do you want to learn about the environment? Because we don't think like just landing there and teaching something that we consider is the right thing. That will be that will be the right thing with these groups. And the answers that they gave us, it show up that they have different levels of knowledge about the environment. And I mean, if any of you want to work with these high school students, that's also something. And I was thinking that for these programs that you were explaining, and I think some of these kids can join that programs too. Maybe they will not have the chance to come to Vermont, but just to be on the loop that they are part of this big picture in the planet, I think they can encourage them to do more work.
Yeah. And that reminds me, actually, Laura, would you mind sharing the slide once more? Let me see if I can. Thank you. Because there are speaking of some other opportunities for students to join, I almost forgot that we have some announcements. Hopefully it'll be useful for some of you. There are first of all, there are more sessions in the series. So if you want to engage with us and the organizers, there are a few more panels and sessions remaining. So we'll put a link in the chat. And then in terms of some of the programs, upcoming programs, yeah. So would you like to share about this program? Oh, I forget.
Yep. So this is the Green Mountains program. We're still accepting students. This is a fee-based program. We do offer full and partial scholarships, but that deadline of March 15th has passed. So if you have students that are interested, feel free to share this information along with them. The program runs from June 29th through July 11th this year. And if they are looking for scholarships, just have them keep in mind it's March 15th. Every year is the deadline, but we launch our application process around middle of November. So they can be on the lookout for that.
Thanks, Laura. And Laura, next slide, please. And then there's also this program, which is this one is free and open to all students, primarily for high school students. If you would like any of your students to join, it's an online program. It's a summer program that runs from June to August. And we have you'll see a bit more about the program when you use the link there. But this is for high school students. So Jeanette, I think maybe it could be of interest to some of the students. And again, I think on the other part of exploring a little bit more into how we can support and kind of collaborate, we can take that communication separately. But I wanted to also let you know that this opportunity is there. This is the program that Radhika shared early on in the presentation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. I think we are right at time. So here, if you have any other questions, want to stay connected with us, and here's all our emails. Just wanted to thank everyone again for sharing about your program and joining. We didn't quite have the chance to do our discussion and questions for each other, but I think hopefully we can do that again very soon through our Earth Network. Laurel, maybe that's something we can schedule for the next sessions. Yeah. All right, thank you so much, everyone. We're right at time. Please do stay connected. And thank you again. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone. Thank
Happy Earth
you.
Month.
Yeah, happy
Yes,
Earth
happy
Month.
Earth Month.
Yeah.
Happy Earth Month, yes.
Thank you. Bye.